For 3 years, no woman on the planet could survive a single round with her. Then, in the span of 13 months, she was knocked out cold and then finished in 48 seconds, and the aura of invincibility that built an entire sport simply evaporated. The most dominant champion in the history of mixed martial arts didn't fade. She shattered. She had won 6 title fights in a row, 3 of them in under a minute, and then she lost everything, twice faster than most people finish their coffee. I'm going to show you exactly how the most feared woman in sports was dismantled. But first, if you want more stories like this one, take a second to like and subscribe. Before she ever threw a professional punch, Ronda Rousey was an Olympian. At the 2008 Beijing Games, she won a bronze medal in judo, the first American woman ever to win an Olympic medal in the sport. She knew how to break an arm before she knew how to sell a fight. When the UFC finally opened its doors to women, she was the reason. For years, the company's president had publicly insisted women would never fight in his octagon. Rousey dominated a rival promotion so completely that the position became impossible to hold, and when the UFC absorbed that league, she was handed its first women's championship. In February 2013, she headlined UFC 157 against Liz Carmouche, the first women's bout in UFC history. She wasn't just a champion. She was the argument that women's MMA deserved to exist at all, and she made that argument the only way she knew how, by finishing people. Her weapon was the armbar, a judo hold that hyperextends the elbow until the joint gives out. Against Carmouche, she almost didn't get there. Her challenger climbed onto her back and locked in a chokehold that could have ended the fight in the opening minute. Rousey survived it, spun free, and submitted Carmouche with 11 seconds left in the round. It set the template for everything that followed. Opponents didn't just lose to her, they vanished, one hyperextended elbow at a time. Then the finishes got faster. In July 2014, she beat Alexis Davis in 16 seconds. 7 months later, she caught Kat Zingano in an armbar just 14 seconds into their title fight, the fastest finish in the history of a UFC championship bout. By the summer of 2015, she had defended her belt 6 straight times, more than any woman in UFC history. 3 of those defenses were over in under a minute. She wasn't beating the best fighters in her division. She was erasing them before the crowd had finished sitting down. One of those wins carried a darker edge. Before their fight in Rio, her opponent Betha Correia had taunted her, saying she hoped Rousey wouldn't kill herself after losing. According to multiple accounts of the build-up, the jab was especially cruel. Rousey's father had died by suicide when she was a child. She answered it in 34 seconds, dropping Correia face first with a single right hand. It was the 3rd straight fight she had ended in under a minute, and it made her look less like an athlete than a force of nature. Off the canvas, she became something the sport had never produced. She was on magazine covers and in Hollywood blockbusters, one of the highest-paid fighters on the UFC roster, a mainstream celebrity who happened to break arms for a living. She even turned a phrase from an interview, her refusal to be a do-nothing woman waiting to be taken care of, into a trademarked catchphrase. At the press conference before her next title defense, she summed up the whole era in one line. "What makes me so confident that I can win is that I'm the greatest fighter in the world. I truly believe it." Almost nobody disagreed. The challenger standing across from her was a former professional boxer named Holly Holm. What happened next rewrote the sport. At UFC 193 in Melbourne, in front of 56,214 fans, a UFC attendance record, Holm did the one thing no one had managed. She refused to grapple, stayed off the fence, and made Rousey chase her around the cage. For a round and a half, Holm picked her apart with straight punches and footwork. Then, early in the second round, she landed a head kick flush on Rousey's jaw. The most dominant champion in the sport dropped face first to the canvas, unconscious before she landed, knocked out cold 59 seconds into the round. The woman who had never lost had not just been beaten, she had been made to look ordinary. Rousey had been an overwhelming betting favorite. Almost no one gave Holm a real chance. The result is still routinely described as one of the biggest upsets in combat sports history. In the span of 2 minutes of actual fighting, the invincible champion had become a cautionary tale. When she finally spoke about it, the depth of the fall became clear. In an interview on Ellen, Rousey admitted the loss had pushed her to a very dark place and described sitting in the medical room afterward thinking, "What am I anymore if I'm not this?" It was a devastating admission from a woman the world had known only as unbreakable. Her entire identity had been fused to being undefeated. The comeback was supposed to restore the myth. Rousey disappeared from public life for 13 months, did almost no press, and returned at UFC 207 in December 2016 as a challenger for the belt she once owned. It took Amanda Nunes 48 seconds to end the story. Nunes walked her down and landed unanswered right hand after unanswered right hand until the referee stepped in. The fastest a female champion has ever finished a fight in the UFC. Rousey walked out of the octagon and never fought in mixed martial arts again. Within a year, she had signed with the WWE, trading the cage for a scripted ring where the outcomes are written in advance. The most dominant fighter women's MMA had ever produced left the sport on the back of 2 defeats that, combined, lasted under 2 minutes. Here's the paradox that still hangs over her career. Ronda Rousey didn't just lose 2 fights, she exposed the very thing that had made her seem unbeatable in the first place. Her aura of invincibility was what convinced a skeptical public that women's MMA was worth watching. Promoters sold her as a superhero, and audiences bought the story. But the moment a former boxer proved she could bleed, that same aura curdled into a weight she couldn't carry. The sport she had dragged into existence was suddenly bigger than the woman who built it. Holm, Nunes, and every fighter who followed didn't need Rousey to be invincible. They needed her to be beatable, because the night she finally fell was the night women's MMA stopped being a one-woman spectacle and became a real division with real depth. That may be the most important thing she ever did, and she did it by losing. If this is the kind of story you want more of, the next one is already waiting for you on your screen right now. Click it, and I'll see you there.